I'm playing today with the members of the Gauntlet community, which, by the way, Gauntlet, if you've probably seen, if you ever watch anything I run, that I play a good deal with the community. They are an amazing group of folks, some of the nicest, most wonderful people you're ever going to get a chance to play with. If you're interested, you should look us up. We have a Facebook presence. We're out there on G+. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com. Please find the Gauntlet. It is one of the best gaming experiences you'll ever have. And we're coming together to play something from the fanzine that the Gauntlet produces monthly. Amazing, top quality things. Always has new games in it. Has wonderful supplements for other games. It's really an amazingly professional little fanzine. And we're playing from Codex-Neon, and we're playing a game called Mechanical Oryx, which was a 200-word RPG challenge winner in 2017, and it's by Grant Howitt. Interesting game. And I'm going to, because it's only 200 words, read it to everyone here and to you guys at home real quick. Mechanical Oryx. You have many whirring eyes and strong, beautiful, coiled steel legs, and were made long ago when the city still stood. You spread one: plants, light, music, warmth, power, knowledge, rust, or something else. The longer you stay in one place, the more intense it gets. You have 3 installed modules. Tell us what they do. You walk the green places where soft brown people tend to fruit trees and sing songs they don't understand. They pray, dispel the curse on our village, destroy the phantoms that plague us, teach us the song that makes the fruit grow. When you act and the outcome is in doubt, roll 2d6 and spend fuel. If you get 7 or more, you achieve your aims. If you roll a double, your solution causes an unexpected problem and something is lost forever. When you act in love, you can roll 1d4 plus 1d6. When you act in hate, roll 3d6. You have 10 fuel. When you have none, you stop. When you use a module, replace 1d6 with a d8. If it shows 8, the module breaks. Happy people build shrines for you containing fuel and modules. Without the shrines, you will become a dangerous scavenging thief of Phantom. And that is Mechanical Oryx. I'm going to also be mashing it up with Maze Rats, because Mechanical Oryx is sort of a game designed for 1 GM, 1 player. I thought we should open that up a little bit to multiple players, and so that we don't have every single encounter being these massive world-shattering things where we're spending fuel and, you know, within a couple of minutes we're all out of fuel and standing there inert while now very sad little people dance around our inert legs. So we're going to use Maze Rats, which is another rather simple game, but a lot of fun, neat little game out there, and kind of shove them together. This is a bit of an experiment. I have not run it before, so we'll see how it goes, but my guess is it's going to be fun. I want to say, to start off with, we have the Gauntlet inclusivity policy in effect, which just means that we're all friends, we're all here to support each other. This is an open table. We're here because we want to have fun together, and we want to be as supportive and helpful to each other as possible, which is the way that any gaming table should be. Along with that, we also have the X card on the table, which, for those of you who don't know, if something becomes problematic, if something is just destroying your fun, if something becomes too personal or it's just not what you want to see in a game, feel free to do like this, put something in the chat, say something, just, hey, Tyler, I think I'd like to X that, anything like that. I may ask for clarification, but we will pull back, reframe the scene, and move right on. It does, it is no problem at all to do that, and there are no questions asked. However, I will say that if it is something that, it has affected you, we're all friends here. If you feel like there's something you need to say, please feel free to put something up at the chat. We have our event page. You can put something up there, or we can take a few moments if there's something you'd kind of like to unload on that. Again, we're all friends, so we're all happy to be here for each other. With that in mind, and with our game sort of set up, or at least the idea of our game sort of set up, I think I'd like for us to do a little world building to decide what our island of Eden is like. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of go down the line and first off, maybe get an idea of tone, where we'd like to, what we want to see in terms of like, do we want it to be dark? Do we want it to have a hopeful feel? Do we want how do we see the people that are our little tribes? Are they worshipful? Are we sort of aloof from them? That sort of thing. So a little tone idea of what we'd like our setting to be. I'm going to start with you, Ari, if you don't mind. What are you kind of thinking of for Oryx?
I'm thinking they were once devout, but they're beginning to lose their faith because of this dystopic environment.
Cool. All right. I like that idea.
What do you guys think?
How's that fit good for everyone?
I like that.
I like
that. Also leaves room for like a spectrum of things, of people that are still more devout and others that are completely not devout. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of, I think, an interesting thing. Sorry, I think I cut you off then, Greg.
No, I was just saying I agree. I like the idea of this sort of varied devoutness, maybe a little loss of faith on the part of some of our people.
Mm-hmm. Greg, is there something you'd like to bring in for our tone?
Just when I read the game the first time, I sort of had this Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the people living in the canyon, and that distant thought of a better world, and maybe that's something that's used or the people believe will happen, and they think the Oryx can bring that about. Whether or not we can, we'll see.
Cool. What do everybody think of that? Does that sound neat to everybody? Nice.
Yeah, I like dystopia with some hope involved, whether it's futile hope or not.
I have a follow-up question for you, Greg. Does that mean that there is a new sort of belief or new faith that is coming into play, or is this a continuation of the previous faith, like this belief of this better life that we used to have or can have again?
Well, jumping off of your initial point, maybe that's the sort of break where some people think the Oryx can bring that about, and some people think that they can't, and they haven't so far. If they could have, they would have, and they haven't. So
I like that. I also love that idea of the last bits of technology that Mad Max sort of has. The repurposing and the things from Lost Age. I think that's always a cool aesthetic. Lou, anything you'd like to add in for our tone?
Yeah, I do really like that idea that like perhaps I guess we'll find out during play more, but that the Oryx are kind of just leftover technology, I guess, but they're viewed as sort of like avatars of gods or something like that. Because did any of you ever play that game Black and White?
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was like you had this huge like avatar, you were God and you controlled I was kind of thinking of that. Like, that so maybe they are avatars of gods, or maybe they're like just machines, you know what I mean? Maybe they even caused the entire apocalypse in the first place. Yeah.
Excellent. I like that.
So
too.
I guess I'm saying maybe to look at the mystery of what these things actually are, and that it is a mystery. Yeah.
Cool. I like that too. Patrick, any thoughts for tone?
I was also heavily thinking about Black and White. So what I was sort of picking up on from there is that like divide between you and the little people, like a trouble with direct communication with them. Like maybe there are oracles or certain people that can interpret what we're saying better, that can get the people's wishes across to us better, but that we just sort of exist on different cognitive levels.
And are they actually really communicating with the Oryx, or do they just have their own agenda? Like, if the Oryx says, "Give me all the extra food, and only my family can have the weapons."
The other thing I sort of like from that setup is just like the harsh, uncaring environment. Like the weather, the island that we're on, it just doesn't give a fuck about us and is really hard to live on sometimes, just so that we have some things to fight against that are not sentient, that don't have a purpose or a cause, that are just things to be resisted.
Okay. Cool.
Well, can I add one tiny other thing that's from the original text anyway, like just more like spotlight? One of the things I love about the text is the how people sing old songs that they don't understand anymore. So there's a lot of things going on like we used to do, like traditions and stuff. Yeah, and I really like that, like asking the Oryxes to teach you the songs to do things, like whether they're actually songs or it's operating machinery or whatever. But yeah, I really like that. And sorry about my rainbow lorikeets in the distance. They're very noisy. I'll use mute very proactively.
If I could just jump off of what Patrick said with the harsh, uncaring environment, and I brought up the Mad Max. I almost pictured like a movie, but Jurassic Park: Lost World, that inhospitable island, but it's beautiful, but it's deadly. Not dinosaurs, but the same idea. A lush world, but a dangerous world.
I like that a lot. I like that concept. I'm always a little over. Yeah, I prefer to the desert. I like that green death, that deep jungle scare. I think it's more frightening even than a desert is being out there. I think that's a lovely, lovely aesthetic. Excellent. Okay. Well, that sounds like we got a cool starting off point. Our island, as we see, is not enormous. We have 4 Oryx and 4 tribes on it. It's, I would say probably just at a, kind of a guess. I imagine it's about 50 square miles, maybe a little bit larger. So pretty cramped conditions. How large do we think our tribes are? Are we thinking that it's a couple of dozen families? Do we think it's several hundred people? I don't imagine we have, hundreds of thousands of people packed on this little island, but what do we think? Do we think small tribes, or do we think that they have managed to be fairly extensive of several hundred?
I could see low hundreds.
For each tribe, or for yeah, okay. What do people think of that?
My brain's trying to tell me to be scientific and consider what would be a viable gene pool for the... I know, but I'm fighting against that. X card, no scientific.
And of course, we have our mechanical Oryx, who can probably helped along the way to overcome some genetic problems, to food problems over the years. Because I do think we feel like the Oryx have been around for a very long time. And it definitely sounds like that these tribes, generation after generation, they're losing things, they're forgetting things. So, this has been going on for, hundreds, maybe 1,000 years. I think it's a distant past. We don't have to define it, but I think it is quite a long ways back. So there was probably a time when the Oryx were, more connected to their tribes, more connected to the people. The people knew more about them and probably were more effective. So cool. So we're looking then at tribes that are 200 or so folks. So that's pretty good sized tribes. Question, I'll start with you on Lou. Do we want to think these tribes, do they interact? Do they dislike each other, distrust each other, or is there more of a trade, and do they intermarry? How do you see the tribes together?
Yeah, I like that. I think I like that they definitely interact, but I kind of like that idea of like very formalized like ways of interacting, and like you stop at the border and you light a fire and you wait for the people to come. And I like the trade being like that more based on like status than wealth and economics, you know what I mean? Like you give somebody this and they teach you a song or something, and it's that sort of like the value of the trade is based on the status of the gift rather than the physical like value. Yeah.
Any
I
other
like
thoughts?
that. Building off that, I like the idea because we had like the declining faith in the godhood of the Oryxes. That maybe in the last generation or two is when the four tribes have actually grown big enough to start interacting with each other regularly, and that sort of growing cosmopolitan nature, that growing like mixture of cultures, is sort of what's leading some people away from believing that their particular Oryx is the almighty god of everything.
Well, then to ask a question on that, do we think that, we're saying now they're starting to meet each other. Oh, by the way, I just looked and I underestimated that island. That island's about 120 square miles. So it's a bigger island. But do we think then that for many, many years, the tribes were much smaller and just didn't interact, and therefore, they built up their own traditions? Now we're starting to see that interplay. Is that what we're thinking then?
Yeah, or at least from my viewpoint, it was that sort of like, we've been small, we've been closed off, we knew the other peoples were out there, but it was a much rarer interaction, which is probably where these like very formalized, ritualized ways of passing through territory came from.
Cool. I like that. That sound good to everybody?
I like the idea of sort of ritual holidays where everyone has to get together, and it's a formalized thing that's been going on for generations, but no one exactly remembers why.
A lot of the time in like communities like this, they're based on like seasonal food. Like it's the time of the year that the whales all beach themselves on part of the island, so there's this massive source of food, and they can all, but maybe it could be something connected to one of the Oryxes or something, like it produces something that, and it like enables everyone to get together.
Oh, that's neat. That's a neat idea. So they're kind of saying we've had interactions with the tribes, but very formalized and very limited. But now that we're getting larger, those, and it goes a little bit back to our kind of traditions breaking down. Now they're meeting each other on other times besides the formalized ones. We're starting to see interplay that isn't just the traditional meetings. Does that sound good?
That sounds good, and I would add that with this sort of decline of the influence of the Oryxes, maybe those interactions are a little bit more collisions, that the Oryxes might have, been sort of an intermediary or a governing force in those interactions. Okay,
so we're kind of seeing a little adversarialness then.
Maybe just from the tribes that have like more food, like better resources. Like I see fruit as a big thing in the Oryx rules. Fruit comes up a bunch of times. I feel like maybe there's some really important fruit that's involved in, not just for eating but also for ceremony. That's important.
Or it's this thing that it's eating and ceremony, and it's what the fuel for the Oryx is made out of, like some
that's cool.
Sort of fruit.
Oh, that's a neat idea. I was going to get around a little bit to us talking about our modules and fuel, so that's a neat thought. Let's keep that in.
I'm just thinking of that part of the world, durians. Have you ever heard of them before? They're type of fruit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're like, so they're spiky and big, and they're one of those things you heaps have to like grow up eating, because they have this really amazing sweet like flavor, but they also have like a weird rotting aroma and a bit of a petrol kind of. It's like cream and sweet and petrol and rot. What do you know about them, Ari?
Oh yeah, I've eaten a lot of durian. Durian shakes are really good, man. Try durian shakes. They don't have the smell.
I don't know if that's a fruit that's made it over here. Huh, that sounds nifty. Okay, I like that. Let's keep that in mind then for when we get to what our Oryx fuel. Greg, I'm going to ask you, we've talked about the tribes interaction. What do you think, how do you think the Oryx, you guys, interact with each other? We'll use that as a start-off point.
I like the idea that the Oryx speak a language that our followers don't understand, and that we certainly keep up communication, but perhaps that ability has degraded over time as well. And so it's harder and harder to connect with each other over time. That's
so, and like misunderstandings that used to it would be really clear what you were saying, and now it's...
Right, and now it's broken, or it's misunderstood, or it doesn't quite translate as well as it used to.
That's cool. That's going to be a neat. That could be a neat role-playing challenge. What are our thoughts? Anybody have thought on that?
I do. I was going to ask Greg. So, what do you think about that disconnect being tied into literally the noise and of the population growth? Like people, multiplying, depending less on the Oryxes, and that sound, that white noise, is kind of drowning out our ability to talk to each other at the Oryxes.
Yeah, I like it's not an acoustic thing. It's some other means of communicating that's not acoustic, and so, but the presence of the people breaks it down. I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could even be like actual noise, and then like mind waves or something. There's too much brain activity on the island, and it's interfering with their sensitive way of communicating.
With that as a thought, then, do we think the Oryx can hear the thoughts of their followers, their tribe? Do we think that part of the prayer to Oryx, the songs to Oryx, also has a psychic effect in how they're communicating?
Sure. I have an idea to suggest. This is kind of out there, but I was gonna say maybe so these Oryxes have a thing, like it sounds like they have a domain, like plants, light, music. Maybe it's whatever thoughts of the people are having that are antithetical to whatever the Oryx's domain is what's causing that interference.
Oh, that's neat. What do we think of that? That sound cool?
That makes sense with ideas, new ideas spreading too, because I guess before they had very specific ideas in different areas, and now all of this extra communication ideas are passing on, and there's ideas that don't interact well with the Oryxes, I guess. So
right.
Cool.
That's cool. Patrick, any thoughts you have at this point?
No, that sounds super cool.
Excellent. All right, then. Well, I think we're getting a pretty good idea of, kind of how this island's been interacting. I do want to step on the idea then of fueling. And do we think we've got 10, each of you have 10 fuel. Do we think that is like your max you've ever had? Or do you think it's been wearing down? And do we feel like, and it sounds like we do, that the tribes can produce fuel? And if so, what do we think that process looks like? Ari, why don't you start us off with an idea then there, and we'll use that as a jumping off point for the discussion.
Well, we've got this map with a big-ass crater in the middle of it. I'd like the idea of using something like gases maybe coming out from that crater, that, or it could be some sort of mineral or like something that they add to the agriculture, to the soil from there.
Okay,
that makes things grow, that they use as fuel.
Okay, so the idea being that something from that mixing with these fruits is what produces. Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's like the sulfur or the volcanic. I forget what it is. There's some foods that are really rich and they grow really well in volcanic soil. Maybe that part of the island is where you get that.
That's cool.
Where the wind blows out of the crater.
Anyone with thoughts on that or discussion?
I like the idea that we had a lot of fuel, and having fuel didn't used to be a problem, but with this sort of schism that's occurred, now they're holding out on us. They don't give us fuel all the time, and now we have to do things to appease them, and then it's broken down.
Neat.
Interesting. That's cool.
I think that's neat too. Yeah, and looking at the
like
island,
holding your gods to ransom, sort of thing.
and yeah, looking at the island, we'll see that there is that massive crater in the middle, but there's also another, looks like a couple of craters where, you know, this island was probably very active at one point or another. I mean, you just looking across, there's, you know, could be 2 or 3 more besides just the big central one. And I suppose I can, even though this is going to do the horrible death thing, I'll show everybody at home real quick our map. That's always a nice thing to do. There is our island of Eden for everybody. Pretty. All right. Cool. Okay. I like where we're going then with the fuel, and I love this idea that now the tribes are kind of extorting a little from their Oryx. I think that's coming up with something really cool there. Is there anything anyone else would like to bring up for this development process at this point? I'm going to go, I think our next step will be for everyone, our Oryx, to pick their, pick the thing they spread. I think that's going to let us help build what our tribes are like. I think that's going to be a cool thing there. So, Patrick, anything here at Tone you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, it's just sort of a loose thing, but I did use the random Maze Rats roller to come up with a thing just because I love that thing. It's so cool. And some of the things I got were like burn scars and you used to be a chimney sweep. And so it led me towards thinking about coal. And having that somehow be tied into what my Oryx was about and what my people were about. So I was wondering how people would feel about like a sort of burgeoning scientific progress. Like people have found combustible fuels and have started to figure out primitive things to do with them.
The introduction even suggests that there's ruins of a city and cities or something on the island, right? So it could be that rediscovery, like your tribe could totally have the ruins of a old coal like plant on it, and they're rediscovering like how to use and reactivate that thing, and your Oryx is connected to that. That's what it makes me kind of think of.
Yeah, I'm sort of into the idea of playing with like themes of twisted eco-conservation themes and like burgeoning science playing in with our fall of faith sort of thing. Does that all hit people well?
Yeah.
Sound good to everyone? All right, yeah. I kind of like that too. All right, neat. Well, then why don't we go ahead and have everybody think a moment, and if you feel like you got what kind of ideal or what special thing your Oryx spreads. And I think I'm then going to, we'll go through it. That's going to help define our tribes. But I also, when you pick your thing, I think tell me why that was important enough that an Oryx should represent it. Why that was something that, as society fell, was needed and kept in and made sure to be protected. So, anyone feel like they have theirs? And I can start. Greg, all righty. What have you got?
I think I spread potable water. It's obviously important, especially in an island of the sea that's not drinkable. Maybe the Caldera Lake is drinkable, but for other reasons, nobody wants to drink it. And so I filter water, and I kind of like the idea of my Oryx kind of lives along the beaches on the periphery, sucking up water and filtering it.
Oh, that's a neat idea. And I think we can, there's pretty good reasons that would be something wanted to be saved. Can you, has there been the past, and is there some sort of like religious aspect to that. How do your people worship that aspect of you?
I think there might be like a festival of boats, and they all sort of congregate around me out in the deep water on a particular time, and I release a whole lot of like going back to Mad Max, that sort of deluge of water all at once, and it's really not efficient, but it's beautiful, and it's a religious thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I love it. Lou, do you think you have what you're going to spread?
Yes, I hope I'm not stealing anybody else's idea, but bad luck if I am. I got in first. Unless you really love it, then I can change. I was thinking knowledge, maybe. Look at everyone's faces. Nobody looks angry. Yeah, and I was thinking that it's kind of like it's a particular field of knowledge, so it's not really like the scientific, like technology kind of knowledge, but it's like I guess like art, cultural kind of stuff. So like music and yeah, I guess aesthetic kind of.
All right.
Maybe it can be textile, like kind of like craft arts kind of stuff. And so I think that it's my Oryx has some kind of old repository of wisdom. It's like a mobile library of ideas and preservation of like the old, like a knowledge arc kind of thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. And how do you think your people? How do they reflect that in their worship? How does that affect them culturally, having that?
I think it's it's almost a religious practice of around the arts. Do you know what I mean? Like anything that's like, it's kind of like in lots of Hindu cultures, how they like offer the food like to a god before they like eat it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then the food is transcendent in some way. I think it's that same sort of thing, but with their song and their art, and maybe they're probably dressed amazingly as well, because all of these creative activities are like dedicated, or have been in the past dedicated to the Oryx.
I love that. I think that's really neat. So we have a sort of, making your beautiful piece of cloth, and you present it to the Oryx, and sort of, to let the Oryx see, and then they take it and make their wonderful clothing.
And it's probably that kind of thing, like similar to Hinduism, where once it's offered, it's seen to actually like that thing is now like it's the Oryx as well.
Oh, I love it. That's fantastic. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Patrick, feel like you know what you're spreading?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like the opposite of Greg's. I think what I'm spreading is dust, basically. I think it's tied to like the coal that my people find, but I think in the like apocalyptic times that we were supposed to be caring for things when things were going wrong, I think the soil it wasn't usable. And so there are systems built into me that like bring carbon, bring plant-based things back up to the surface and spread them around. I think that's maybe part of why this island is so like overgrown everywhere. But like maybe my particular tribe, they started finding these bits of coal, these bits of carbon before they got all the way up to the top and could sort of spread. So that's where they started finding these hunks of coal.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I love it. And how does this reflect in how they worship you, or in their traditions towards their Oryx?
I think there's an annual festival in the very middle of the winter, the sort of longest night solstice time, when I go up and I like settle for a couple of weeks on a particular promontory up in the mountains that's sort of cut off from other things, and it just the dust and the coal and the everything, they just settle and build up all over everything until all of my villagers come up and in the middle of the night, in the middle of the ceremony, they light the whole thing on fire for this like gigantic bonfire with my Oryx in the middle, and they bring torches, they bring wood, and they light fires that they bring down from the mountain and back to their village. And they, if you can keep that fire continually going and lit for the whole year, it'll bring you luck, sort of thing.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that is cool. That is super cool. Neat, neat, neat. Ari, what do you think your Oryx is?
So many good ideas here. I think I'm going to go with insects for mine. And these insects originally were sort of the agents of communication between the people and the Oryxes. So like they're just hive mentality. Maybe they're like cicadas, where they come out, at specific times, like long periods of time pass, and when they come out, there's like big festivals and things like that. But yeah, 7 or 12 years. Thanks, Lou. But they're also around like normally, also, right? But there's like a big explosion of them at certain times.
Okay. Is it just? Oh, sorry. Was someone speaking?
I was just curious. Are they actually organic insects, or are they mechanical as well?
I was gonna go with organic, and they're like vessels for communication between the people and the Oryxes, so they can form patterns, like complex patterns and things like that. But at some point where you have the departure, where people are no longer speaking directly to the Oryxes as they used to, I think that coincides with a period of time when they started to eat these insects rather than leaving them in their natural habitat, and that probably caused a disruption to the ecology of the island. Like,
oh, that's neat. Oh, that's cool. Are you envisioning it that this is just one type of insect that does all of this, or are there a whole bunch of specialized ones as well doing other things? Or
maybe there's two. Maybe there's one that's more like colors and patterns and things like that for communication, and then there's another one that's like it has glands that have psychoactive like secretions that the priests, like the high priest, use for ceremonies and things like that.
Oh, I love it. So then to the next question, kind of how does this reflect in their worship? What does it go in their traditions? Saying perhaps that we have holy men who eat these or lick them, or
take exactly, and maybe their clothing, they're like moths, where their wings and things like that are clothes of people, designating status.
Oh, cool. Okay.
More colorful varieties of these insects maybe are like for the high priest, and then like ordinary folk wear the more dusty, drab sort of winged versions of these insects. So yeah, I'm gonna go back and go with your idea that there's a whole bunch of varieties of colors and patterns and things like that. That's cool.
Neat. Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay, well, I think hearing this, we've gotten some pretty cool ideas about the tribes and their relation with the Oryx. I think now I'm going to have us just say like a statement of what the tribes, something that defines them as separate from the others, something that's really, kind of a mission statement of the tribe idea, what makes them unique. Patrick, what do you think? What would you say is, and it doesn't have to be just one sentence, but what is the feel of your tribe?
I think the feel of the tribe is they very much embrace this dust. Like it's their skin is mostly caked and covered in like they sort of make muds and different colors and designs out of it, and protect their skin from all of this irritating material by just being covered in sort of hard clay a lot of the time. But I think they're, I brought it in, so I'm going to take it forward. I think they're sort of pushing that scientific edge, pushing that sort of like what they can do with the energy they can get out of the coal sort of thing. So they're associated with fire and metal and inventing new things sort of stuff. But they would also have, I don't know, maybe there's some plants that are specialized to my area too, just because the soil is sort of like toxically nutritious. So there are only certain things that can only grow in that sort of like blasted out soil.
Okay, that's cool. And we're talking your scientific. These. It sounds like your people may be the more advanced of the people of the island in those terms. Do you think that they're also, is part of that also scavenging from the old tech and remodifying it?
Yeah, like maybe in the process of bringing things up out of the earth, up out of the soil, there are just other pieces of the past that sort of come to the surface here on this part of the island. I sort of like that.
Cool. All right. And I won't ask you now, but we'll get back to it. What is the name of your Oryx, and what is the name of your tribe? And I'll let everybody describe out, and then we'll come back through to hear those, because names are always the hardest, aren't they? So, yes.
And I sort of had a structural question. With the modules, how are we approaching that? Is that something we want to come up with at the beginning, or is that like when you need to pull a module out, tell us what it is?
I want at least for us to define one module to start with, because I think that'll be something that's very definitively, you can know it about, you see it, it's something that'll make you distinct. I don't mind if people want to go ahead and lay them out. We could also, have it pulled in play when we see a need for it too. But I'd like at least one to be defined out to begin with.
Well, I do have an idea for one
Okay.
module, which I think is, again, names are the hardest thing. I'll try and come up with a good name for it. But it's a module that basically lets my body break apart into tiny bits to flow into the dust swarm, and it stays like magically, electrically, scientifically, whatever, connected to each other so that I can come back together at some point, but that I
kind
can
of a nanocloud type thing.
Yeah, fade into a dust storm and a sort of nano cloud ability.
Oh, that's neat. Cool. Excellent. Lou, would you like to give a little statement of your tribe? What are they like?
Yeah, I think I sketched it out. Like, they're very focused on creating music and various different types of art, I guess. And so that's the focus of their everything else is about making time for that to happen. So they probably, I guess, potentially look like lazy maybe to other, from a different cultural perspective, because they might neglect other parts of their life, or their, what I mean, to concentrate on doing this. Yeah.
Building up food is just so you have the free time to create, is sort of the idea,
Totally.
right?
Some bleed from my own life there.
And can I ask, maybe, is there, like in your everyday activities, is there an artistic quality, like they do things in certain ways because that's the more aesthetic way to do it?
Yeah, I think it's even, let's go right into it and say I think dance maybe is part of that too. So it's probably even, they move, like you can just tell if somebody's from that, like they move very deliberately or in creative ways. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Probably an accent that's very musical. That's really cool.
Or like, I don't know if you guys have read the Patrick Rothfuss books, but there's a culture in that called the Adem, and they have gestures and stuff in their language that accentuate like emotion and that sort of stuff. So they're probably, you know, they're a lot like that.
Oh, that's so cool. Excellent. And again, come up with a name for your Oryx and your tribe, and think of a module. Greg, tell us about your tribe. What is the defining bit of your tribe?
To continue this trend of Patrick and I being opposing, I think my tribe is very much they're fishermen like me. They spend a lot of the time in the water. They're very traditional. They sort of stick to the seasons, and things have always been this way. And going off of what the Maze Rat character generator did, I have a wiry birthmark, ostentatious clothing, and laconic. So I imagine these very thin, not very well nourished fishermen, because there's not a lot of fish. And they have brightly colored clothing, and they're constantly trawling the sea and sort of maintaining this deep tradition amongst themselves. But they very rarely go on land unless it's one of those seasonal festivals.
Oh, that's cool. So do they have houses that are out in the water? Do they do like houseboats and bring them together?
Yeah, like houseboats, sort of floating. No one's ever exactly sure where they will be. They've traveled far, but they haven't found anything. They always come back and say, no, there's nothing. And whether people believe them or not, we'll see. But yeah.
Oh, that is very, very cool. I like the idea that there's not a lot of fish that they catch to eat, but are there other things out there? I'm interested are there threats they've encountered out in the waters? I think you may be muted.
Sorry. Extreme weather, I think, for sure. That may not be a stranger to people on the island, but they definitely get more of it being out at sea. And then, I don't know, I like the idea of, like, you know, we're not the only big thing. There's perhaps things in the deep that aren't too friendly, or other stuff. Yeah.
Excellent. Cool, cool, cool. All right.
I've been playing Subnautica recently, so like the whole deep sea fish thing is, yeah.
Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. So be thinking of a name for you, your tribe, and a module. Ari, tell us about that tribe.
I think that tribe lives on the slopes of the volcano. I guess it was a volcano at some point. Maybe it's inactive now. Maybe they even live in lava tubes, for protection. I think they're very robust people because they get a lot of protein from eating those insects. But their numbers are collapsing because every 7 to 12 years, when that big emergence of insects comes out from the ground, it's getting smaller and smaller every year.
Is that because of their disconnection from you? Is that, do you think, an effect of that?
Yeah, they're not supposed to eat these insects. They're not meant as a food source. They're meant as a way of communication.
How is that affecting them? How eating them? What is it doing to them?
I think there's definitely a segment of that group that's addicted to them because of some of these insects. Some of the species of this insect have the psychoactive properties. Maybe there's a group of them that control that, and it's causing a kind of a greater inequality between members of that family.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very hierarchical based on, like, the colors you wear and things like that, matching the insects you have power over.
Neat. Just because this is fascinating to me, this idea of them eating them and all the psychoactives, is with this hierarchy, is it religious in nature, or is it like an insight? Do they say to, I of course eat of the bug of the beetle, and so I have all this insight? Is that the way that the hierarchy works?
Yeah, I like that. I think depending on the insect that your spirit insect, I think that gives you authority over certain things, right?
Cool. Oh my God, that is so neat. That is a really, really neat thing. Cool. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Patrick, name of your Oryx, and name of your tribe.
The names suck. My Oryx is Karku.
Karku.
Karku. My tribe is something something. You'll just be amazed when you hear it.
Something something dark side.
Exactly.
All right. Karku. And tribe unnamed right now, calling them the Karkuians. Hey, that'll spur you to make a name, won't it? All right. Lou, what is the name of your Oryx and your tribe and that module?
Yeah, so my Oryx is called Mahalia.
Pretty
which means tenderness. The people, did you ask what the people were called?
Yes, sir.
The people are called Tala, T-A-L-A, which apparently is a goddess of the stars in Tagalog, you know, the Filipino, like old Filipino religion. I'm stealing from Filipino stuff. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think the module, I think it's just it's a music related thing. And I think it's not just playing music, like it's not just a ghetto blaster. It's I think it's it's kind of like how do you say it? I've only ever read it that the like that feng shui, or what is it? Do you say it feng shui? Like the way of you know, that way of organizing things in a like that aesthetic. I think it's kind of like a sonic version of that.
Nice.
So I think it responds to noises in the environment and responds with the perfect sound to that. So I think it's kind of makes the environment around it calmer and more peaceful. And it's probably really struggling now with what we said before, with all the extra noise in the environment, to be able to respond to that and maintain that calm, that kind of field of calmness around it.
I love that, Lou, because that's a really neat module that makes, I mean, it seems magic, but it's that super science idea of something that is sonically designed to induce that calm. That is really neat, Lou. Very nice.
Could be sad and bad if it breaks, or when it breaks.
That is, I love that. Oh, that's awesome. Greg, name of your Oryx tribe and your module.
I actually rolled from Maze Rats and got Well Beloved, which I like because it's sort of the well. Yeah. So my tribe is Tribe Well Deep, and so it's sort of borrowing from possibly older words that people don't remember what a well is, because I am the well, but they are, yeah. Cool. They go off of that. And then the modules, I also had an acoustic thing, but I'm changing it. I'm going with an unfolding temple. My back sort of opens up and people can crawl up my legs, and there's a temple inside of me that people worship me in.
Oh, that's really cool. They worship you inside yourself. That's very neat. And I imagine that you have the waters in there that they can drink. Oh my goodness, that's really nifty. Oh, that's so cool. Excellent. And Ari, your tribe, your Oryx, and your module.
Okay, my Oryx is called Khitan. The tribe is the Antar. And the module, I was thinking something like something that causes the ground to tremble, to vibrate. And that's what makes the insects move in certain patterns. It attracts them and makes them, you know, line up and do whatever the Oryx wants them to do.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, and so it's for the control of the insects.
Maybe even to incite fear and awe in the the followers.
As it would. It would certainly incite awe in me if you suddenly made the ground start trembling. That's cool. Can you repeat your tribe name again?
Yeah, the tribe is the Antar.
Antar.
Antar, and the Oryx is called Khiton, Khyton.
All right.
Which I think is the Greek word for chitin. So.
Oh.
I think I have to look it up again.
If it's not, though, it's super awesome, and we'll pretend it is.
You could totally have myrmidons too. Myrmidons. It means like ant, like they're like ant warriors.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's so cool. All right, then. Why don't we go ahead and everyone, have we chosen our starting feature? Because I think that's going to be a nice big defining point to us as well. Ari, have you chosen your starting feature in Maze Rats?
Sorry, I was in another window typing up a bunch of stuff. Have I chosen? No. What is this part? Sorry.
Okay. In character creation in Maze Rats, it's number 3. And you get the choice of either a +1 attack bonus, which is pretty straightforward. That's add 1 to all your attack rolls. You get a single spell slot. Spell slots you get to cast once per day. And again, we'll roll each time you cast it. Each day you'll get a new one, and we do that chart roll for some random and negotiate kind of what it means. Or you can choose one of the paths, which is Briarborn, Fingersmith, Roof Runner, or Shadowjack. And again, these will be reflective of things that are kind of you as your Oryx, and also traits that your people have sort of picked up.
Okay, got you. I like
Want a second? Okay. Would you like a second, or you think you got one?
I'm going to go with spell, but I want to look at it and see like what my choices are. So maybe come back to me in a moment.
Okay, and if you look over on the page that says magic, it will tell you how you roll, and it has that interesting little random chart. You'll see you'll roll a d6 and another d6, and it'll come up there what sets you're going to use.
Okay.
And you roll in that. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's one of my favorites.
I'll do that. I'm going to go with spell.
Okay, cool. Greg, have you had a chance to decide your starting feature?
Yes, I did the random character, and I got Briarborn, which fits perfectly. That's the tracking, foraging, survival. My people are fishermen, so I did this earlier, so I've been pulling from it for all the inspiration. Yeah.
Excellent. That is so cool.
Yeah, they're Briarborn sounds like they're all in the woods, but they're the fishermen. Yeah.
They're seaborn. All right, excellent. Lou, have you chosen your starting feature?
Yeah, I got a spell that's called Stasis Form.
That's you rolled your first spell?
Yeah.
All right, and again, we'll roll every day. Every time you use one, the next day you'll get a new and different.
Yeah, I love that. It's exciting. And actually, the only other time I played Maze Rats, I think I might have played with you and Patrick. And
yeah,
I think one of you guys had a spell, and I was jealous every time you got to roll it.
They are so much fun. And what did you say you have rolled for your first one?
Stasis Form.
Stasis Form. That's cool. Want to do a quick define on that since you've got it?
Yeah.
Do we think that it's Stasis Form? So do you think it is a personal spell, or do you think that it is more outreaching?
It could be either.
I'll put up then 2 ideas for what I can think of.
Yep.
One is that you can cast it on yourself, and for I would say we give it a time limit, but in that time you can do like you could do your use your things without spending fuel. I would say like you do this stasis form. We would say for 3 actions you can or 3 turns, which we'll use loosely in this. You would be able to expend yourself, but because you're in this stasis form, it's not burning your fuel.
Yeah, right. It's like super fuel economy mode.
Right. We can do that. Or if you would rather, you can have one where you can do a stasis form where you define a space. And for, I think, to go with beige rats, I'll let you roll a d6, and it'd be that many days that the area that you put it on does not change.
I think I'll go for super fuel economy.
Good show. That's a neat one. Well worth hanging on to until you need it, and then we'll get a whole brand new spell. Patrick, what do you think of your starting feature?
Well, I went with spell, obviously.
Obviously.
And I also got off the random generator, so the spell I'm starting with is Blossoming Tentacle.
Ooh, that's neat. I think that this is an interesting idea, just coming off of me, and we can play with it a little. Do we think that it, as you cast it, these tentacles grow up and the blossoms produce food? Or do we think that in more of a nature of you blossom this up and it puts out some sort of like energy or force, the blossoms that spring up? What do you think when you hear that as a suggestion?
I don't know. I've sort of been imagining it along the lines of like a plant growth entangling sort of like massive fecundity spell.
Okay, so almost where you cast it and it makes these, while beautiful, kind of dangerous and grasping sort of thing. Okay,
yeah, just like a little radius around me that goes all crazy with growing vines and stuff.
I like it. I like it, and again, absolutely beautiful because all of these amazing blossoms on it. Love it. Ari, did you have a chance to roll your spell?
Yeah, this is gonna be funny because it's so appropriate. I got Deceiving Swarm.
Oh, that's perfect. I just me coming up, and of course we'll with all these spells we'll negotiate back and forth. But I love the idea, since we've already established these insects as kind of a communication, that it's able to communicate something, to like imprint a thought on someone's mind. The swarm goes out and you can implant something in someone.
Sure.
What do you think of that?
Yeah. Like it makes the insects make some kind of sound, but then it becomes a thought or a vision or illusion or something.
And I would let you use that against people, or since the Oryx work off of that same thing, you could use it off the Oryx. Doing so, of course, would then they'd have a resistance roll, that sort of thing. With people, and I'm going to kind of use this as a flat sort of concept for the game. When you guys do things to people, they're very rarely going to have much resistance to you. You're godlike being.
Right.
When you go against each other, then we'll have rolls against that. All right. I think we have a really good idea of what of our start off. Do we feel like we know our place? Do we feel like this island's come alive for us?
Yeah, it's an interesting place.
All right. So I think we're going to take a break, do our 5-minute break here. And when we come back, I'll go ahead and let us know real quick. My concept for this first session was to do a world build. I love world building. I know Lou loves world building. Patrick likes world building. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So I intended for us to have an extensive one. I then planned for our second half to be us dealing with, as I put up in the game description, something terrible has happened to the east. And we're seeing that fallout coming from it. I'm going to have us interacting, the tribes, figuring out how to deal with this problem, throwing some obstacles at you, and then our big cliffhanger for the end is when I bring on the horrible, horrible. And our next section will be dealing with the horrible, horrible. So let's go ahead and take 5 minutes. We'll come back at we'll say 9:31, 9:32. See y'all in just a few. So, Greg, you say you're from Texas?
I live in Texas. I am not from Texas. No. No, my wife and I moved here about a little over a year ago. Yeah.
Oh, so you're fairly recent there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But I like Texas. I like Texas. It's my second favorite of the places I've lived. My favorite is Louisiana. Love Louisiana.
I like Louisiana myself.
The food is good.
I've visited once or twice, and it's a great place.
Yeah.
We're from Patrick and I are from South Carolina.
I used to live in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh,
so
okay,
not
good.
far from what's the big beach? Myrtle Beach. Not far from...
We live up upstate near Greenville.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Bet it's hot there in Texas.
It's very hot. We've had we're on our second day of 3 days of rain, which is much needed right now. It's been really dry.
We had a real big shock yesterday from having been in the 95 air range. It dropped down into the 70s for one day. It was just a beautiful moment.
We've had that, but it's been accompanied by massive thunderstorms, so it hasn't been as nice when it's 70.
I don't know if it's climate change or what, but it used to be that we'd have very dry summers here. And lately, it's been almost like it's a rainforest in South Carolina all the time. We get rain, a spattering of rain every day, it seems like. Area, DC, is that where you're back to?
Northern Virginia, just outside DC, about 20 minutes or so.
How long are you going to be in the States?
3 months.
Oh, so you got a while here.
Yeah, 3 months.
How's the jet lag going?
Not good. I'm holding together, though. I got a little caffeine in me for this. So
I've never experienced jet lag before, but like even just traveling to another place that's in the same like time, like messes you up.
Yeah.
And you're there visiting family, or are you working?
I work all the time, but yeah, I'm visiting family right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, helping them out with a move. So they're doing some housework and stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I play on pretty much every single time zone there is, but at least now you're on our actual time zone, so we can play together more.
Very rarely, but yeah, I'm lucky to get to play with you in every time zone.
That's all right, gang. Well, okay, let's start playing. I think everybody have their characters fully set. I think we should have. If there's any questions before we get started, let me know. If not, then I think I want to start with 3 weeks ago. There was an enormous bright light in the east in the middle of the night, and it rose up like a sun. And it lasted for hours before it began to slowly fade. Afterwards, there was winds, storms, and since then, starting several days later, there have been these dust clouds and kind of particulates in the air. And so even in the height of the day, it's dim. It's not like completely nighted out, but it's certainly shielding, and it's giving everything this faintly greenish yellowy glow. But the sun shining through it, it's made everything look very different. And as I say, there have been some storms that have come with it, and there was the feeling, and I imagine that Kitan, you probably, along with that feeling of giving vibration to the ground, you're probably very well connected to vibrations from the ground. And when that enormous light went up, you felt the earth move. You could feel the vibrations of it. And so as the days and now weeks have passed, there's no one more religious than people who feel like things are going badly. You're always your most religious when stuff's going to shit. So there's actually been a little upswing of people, kind of praying to the Oryx. And then there are others who are, saying things like it's, this is just some sort of phenomenon, some sort of weather, something strange. Don't fall back to superstitions. But you've been hearing amongst your people that they are concerned, they are worried, and the whole island is sort of feeling that. And I'm going to ask, with this dust in the air, Karku, what are you doing? Is that you, Patrick? Karku, is that right?
Yeah.
Karku.
So you said this happened off to the east.
Yes, and way to the east, which is why
over the sea sort of thing.
Right.
I don't know if people has anybody thought about like where on the island their tribe might be centered.
Oh, that's not a bad question. Looking at the map, and since you asked the question, I'll let you. I know that Ari mentioned that the Antar are in the hills and in the lava tubes of the central crater, and I believe that we've heard that the Well Deep are around in the water. Patrick, where do you think your people are?
I had mentioned mountainy stuff, so I think the Kaolin are up in that that very northwestern mountain and promontory up in that sort of area.
And it looks like it probably was a volcano at one point too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, I think Karku has climbed all the way up to that highest point on the mountain, trying to wait for the storm to pass and see if he can get some sort of view on what's happening far off there.
All right. Why don't we have you roll a will to have you try and, you as dust, as your purview, so to speak, kind of extending your will to sense this dust around and to look out at what is going on.
Okay.
Unless you wish to do some great Oryx thing here, you could do that as well.
No, I think a sort of first look to get my feet under me, see what's going on here. Let's see. To do things and also choose stuff and press buttons and not throw my mouse across the room because it's being laggy. So that's a 6, 7, 8.
First thing that you do notice is that there are things in this dust that you've never seen before, or at least it's hitting your data banks, your memory is slightly familiar, but you cannot place it. There's something though foreign in this dust. And you can see, looking from here, and as you're extending your sight, there is more of it coming. But without a success there, you're having trouble really making a proper evaluation.
Gotcha. I think it would be him standing up on this promontory for quite a while before he, I guess, try and engage some sort of Oryx system, like to interact with this dust.
You think you have a module that does that?
Yeah, I think there's like a vibrational module that makes an entropy field around him. Things just start to break down and shake apart. And it puts up this cloud of dust that sort of falls under his control, and he can start to shape things with it or interact with it. So maybe to try and call up my own cloud to send out into the storm.
All right. Do we think that is, are are we doing a full Oryx move there, or do you think you're trying to access that module to re-roll one, or I would let you roll a D8 and take away your lowest on that last roll and roll a D8 for it?
No, I think it's a full Oryx thing. I'm sort of shaving down the top of a mountain slightly. That seems sort of Oryxy godlike.
All right. So rolling 2d6 unless you're acting with love or hate, and you can add that D8 for one of your D6s if you wish to risk your module.
Yeah. So it's spend a fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this way. I don't have a fuel thing.
I just changed my luck stat to fuel.
Oh, that's smart.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. It's fine. And then I need to put a D8 out there because I'm using a module here. And then I roll that one, and get a 7.
Well, that's a success.
How does that do in Oryx?
That's a success. You need 7 or better.
Oh, okay. Haha.
And did not roll an 8 on your D8, I'm guessing, since you only got a 7.
True.
All right, so you begin breaking down and sifting through this dust. And it cues to something very ancient in you. Some memory from even before the fall. Uranium, radioactivity, nuclear explosion. Meanwhile, out on the seas, a member of some of the Wellborn, some who have sailed further towards the east, have been fishing out that direction. When you, Well-Beloved, you can hear one of them praying.
Mm-hmm.
They have found someone not of Eden, someone with an Oryx. And
Another
they call.
Oryx?
That is what they seem to be.
They say.
That's what the prayer is. They are in the distance. I suppose you could try to go to them.
I think, yeah. I'll try to. I hear the call sort of through the insects that are buzzing in my ears, and the people. Just the sort of swarm of bugs that surround all of the Oryx, I assume. And
I can imagine the Oryx's ears doing the little flappy things as the bugs are around them.
The tail slapping around. So yeah, I make my way out to, and I'm guessing they're coming back with him right away.
Yes.
And so we sort of meet halfway, probably it goes east of the island, probably somewhere, sort of in the center.
Okay.
Further out into the water.
I'm just to find out, is it a base nature of Well-Beloved that does he tread water? Does he swim? Does he walk across it? Is there a module that you have that allows you to do these sorts of things, or do you just swim?
You know, I like the idea that there's sort of a flotation module that doesn't get used a whole lot, but for special circumstances like this, he engages it. So,
excellent. I'll write that down. All right. And so as you head across and you can see in the distance these ships of your people coming in, and you see that they have with them a very different looking ship, boat. It is cobbled together, but you can see that it has metal pieces to it rather than, I'm guessing most of your people use, it's all wood.
Yeah, it's sort of like wood canoes.
This is something that has been pulled together with metal, and as you're coming close, you sense another Oryx, but it is one that is very weak. And in fact, as you're coming closer to it, it sends out a message to you. It's just a picture that comes into your mind, into your processes, and you see this enormous mushroom cloud rising up from a land, a vast land, but flying out of the mushroom cloud, you see this gigantic, I mean, it even dwarfs you. Well, dwarf might be a little much, but bigger than you, bird. But it is an Oryx, a mechanical creature. An Oryx, I suppose, is all herd beasts, but it is one of the mechanicals of this enormous bird coming out of that mushroom cloud, spreading its wings. And as that image hits you, you realize that this mechanical that is with that boat has spent its last fuel and goes inert.
Oh. I think I want to communicate to my fellow Wellborn that they need to attach tow lines, and I need to pull it back to the island so we can show the other Oryx. Do I need to roll for that? Is that a roll?
Yes, I think that sounds. Yeah. I think we should do a strength for that. I don't think this is world shattering. You're coming over with your flotation device. You have it. You can use your module D8 if you wish to risk it, or you could just try and roll the 2d6 straight up.
I'm gonna risk it because actually, I don't have a module that really pertains to that. And my people are terrible at strength, and it'll be fun if they fail. So we'll just drive these over here and reroll. Yes, 9.
Fantastic. Let's see. If were you doing your godliness there?
No, I rolled straight 2d6 for them, whether they would understand. Should I use?
Well, it's up to you, because with a 9, that's a failure on our Maze Rat's lower stakes.
No, I'll own it. Yeah, they messed up. They misinterpret.
Okay. And so you see, as you're trying to move towards them, you see that they are pulling the people from that boat. And you could see as you get closer, and you're still some distance away, but you have amazing sight. You're like me. You could see that the mechanical that was pulling this boat is an enormous mechanical orca. And as you are watching, and they're pulling these people, and you can see there's a good dozen of them that were on this boat. You see that orca roll its belly up, begin to sink, and as it does, begin to pull the boat down with it.
Can I act in anger at my own people?
You may. Are you
and
going
let
to try
out a
and
howl and make them understand that I want them to save it?
You can.
So that's a 1d. That's
3d,
right?
3d6.
And I might break a module if I have.
Well, if you want to use your module, you don't have to use your module on that one.
Okay.
If you roll a double though in there, then we have some potential for stuff.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
If you wanted to use a module, you'd pull in a D8 instead of one of those D6s, and it's an Oryx move, so you're spending a fuel.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I have 9 fuel, and those they just can't listen. There we go. So is it a best of, or is it a total?
It's a total on that.
Either way, it's 14. So.
All right. And did you roll any doubles?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
Something terrible happens.
Something unexpected, and something is lost forever. And so as they move, they hear your bellow of rage across there, and they quickly begin moving to put their canoes to the sides of the ship, and you see several of them recognizing that it's this orca that's pulling the ship down, and so they begin hammering at the things that are connecting it to the boat. And as they cut that last chain, the orca sinks from sight and is gone, lost forever. But the boat.
But they save the people, right?
They save the people and the boat.
Okay.
And so you getting to them, collect the boat and them, and begin returning to Eden. Meanwhile, I'm so bad at remembering names. There we are. Caton, you are up. Where are you? Are you with your people? Where are you as all of this has been going? You know, these weeks are passing.
The Oryx me, or the
The Oryx you.
The Oryx me probably is perched on the ridge of the called, what is it called there? Is that what
Caldera.
called? Yeah. And the people are on both sides of the slopes below. So I see this maybe out in the sea, what's happened.
I think that's entirely possible. Yeah, you have, again, amazing vision.
A clear prospect of this, and I transmit that through the insects to all my priests, and then them to the people, like cascading down this information.
What do you want them to do? Are you wanting them perhaps to try and, or we have the idea that they're holy people, they use these psychedelics. I don't know if that's something you want them to do.
Yeah, maybe use that's a great idea. Maybe use the psychedelic insect secretions to try to communicate with the people or whoever is on this boat, on this craft.
Excellent. All right. Well, why don't we have you roll a will on the maze rats, because this is your people doing it. You're not doing it as your Oryx.
Okay. So that's good. My will is 2, if I recall. And what is it? 2d6?
Yes, 2d6.
So it's 2d6 plus 2.
And you need to get a 10.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. What can I do to bump that up?
You can, if you wish. If you could come up with a module that would apply in this, you could use your module to help their roll. And which I'm going to let y'all kind of use your modules to, because they're at risk when you do it. So you could use them interspersed in this maze rats thing. Or other than that, there's not a great deal to boost up.
You can get advantage in maze rats.
That's true.
If the risk of an action is reduced due to the PC's paths, preparation, or situational factors, you could get advantage, which is 3d6, and take the best 2.
Oh, how about then, Aaron? Why don't you, I think I'll give you advantage if you describe out the ceremony then. How do they use these insects?
They take the Oryx, they communicate to the Oryx that they want this thing. The Oryx vibrates, the insects, the vibrations in the earth causes the insects to secrete the stuff from their glands, and then the priest would lick the wings, or they would pour them into religious vessels, and then drink them, and then they're able to establish these visions that way.
Excellent. So you'll get to roll 3d6. You'll take the best 2, and then add your 2 from will.
Okay. 3d6. So let me get rid of these red dice that are on there. So I'm sure that I've rolled. Delete those. And 3d6. And it's just what does the plus 2 will do for this? Is it just added?
Just added on.
Okay. So I have a 3 and a 5 plus 2.
Excellent.
So that's 10, just barely.
That's all you need. And so they're conveying this message to the people. What are they conveying? What are they saying to them?
I think they're establishing whether they're friendly or not. And if they get the sense that they are friendly, we're helping them to chart a course to a safe harbor that we have like a path down the crater to get to, where we could immediately have physical contact with them.
As they extend, as your tribe extends their minds and reaches out to them, they sense fear, terror at what they've had to run from, and this deep unbelievable sadness that, we'll call him Tamo. Tamo, their Oryx, who has protected and led them, and who is the only reason they have escaped, has now left them.
Yeah.
And they feel lost. And you can also see there's this wonder because they're seeing Well Beloved.
Yeah.
But this sadness and devotion to their lost mechanical orca.
I'm able to establish. Oh, so the orca was their Oryx.
But he is gone now.
He's gone. Well, there's room here on the island.
And so your tribe sends out this welcome.
Yeah.
And you see coming in from the distance, Well Beloved and the flotilla, and this again metal made boat as they're bringing it. Nahalia. As this, we're into that present moment. All of these clouds. What are you doing?
I think maybe.
And where is your tribe? We never got to where your tribe.
So I think we're on that southernmost tip, like the crater and little peninsula in the very south.
I think that might even be about the same place that Patrick's tribe is, isn't it?
Yeah, is that right? Oh, I thought he said northwest.
Yeah, northwest.
Let's see on which map I'm looking at. Yes. It depends on which picture you're looking at, since I did
okay,
a round.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the topographical one.
And now y'all could, you could be fairly close to each other, though that kind of plays off a little different.
Maybe, I kind of want to be isolated. Well, maybe in the topographical one, I'm in the southwest, the little peninsula thing. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sorry about that. I forgot there were multiple maps.
Yeah, I bagged out too. And I think that Mahalia is just struggling to maintain the pace of her own patch against this kind of bombardment of I think she can feel the emotions like emanating from these new arrivals. Like it's an intense emotion, and they're communicating with her whether they mean to.
And we're getting a lot of bug communication going on right now because we've got. So you're definitely picking it up.
Yeah, well, maybe I might. Why not try to do something epic straight away? And I think she's trying to maintain the tranquility of the entire island. She's like standing up, kind of looking out over the island, and she wants to make sure like everyone doesn't this is. Probably nothing like this has happened for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Like outsiders arriving, and I guess she knows that it's potentially a could be bad news.
Yes, absolutely. That seems fantastic. That sounds definitely like a big Oryx.
So action. I'm gonna risk my my really
your module there.
My module straight away.
Okay. So you'll use one fuel. Do you feel like this is just a straight 2d6 roll? Now you'll be replacing one of those d6s with a d8. Do you feel like you're acting in love?
Acting with love, so I have to use a d4.
So a d4 and your d8.
Yeah, a d4 and a d8 is what I'm rolling.
Right, because if you wish, you say you're risking your module, so you'll replace that d6 with your d8.
Yep.
And tell me if it's a double or if you roll that 8.
Oh, I rolled a 3 and a 1.
All right. As you extend your influence, you can feel that there is unrest from this. You can feel from the mountain that the Antar up there, who have extended, this welcome. They're nervous about new people, though they're extending the welcome because their Oryx has asked them to. You can sense from the well deep that they're concerned about what these people may be. What are they bringing something terrible with them? Your own people who are frightened by all of this that's going on, and since you trying to calm things, and their own emotions are causing you difficulty, causing this to not work for you. And I suppose that even the Cowlin, or Cowlin, is that how you pronounce it, Patrick?
I was saying Kaolin.
Kaolin. All right. How are they feeling? Patrick, have you let them know that these new arrivals are coming? They're furthest away.
I don't know if I know about the new arrivals, do I?
Other than what you would have picked up from the communications that are now spreading around.
So maybe a sense that something is coming this way from that, but I know what happened where it left from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm sort of like riding the dust storms down from the top of the mountain and through the village. I'm heading generally down towards the Tala and Mahalia.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think as I pass through the village, it's sort of a tuning into the brainwaves of some of the priestesses, the oracles in the village. Just saying that they need to prepare, they need to bunker in and layer more dust on, layer more mud.
Oh, all the ritual mud. And so, Nahalia, there's just so much agitation that you're unable to spread that calming influence. Well, beloved, you have reached with this flotilla the beach. Your people. How are they reacting? Let's go in for. Do you, as your Oryx, give some sort of directive to them once you've arrived back to your people, or do you wish to? How would your people react to these newcomers?
I think my people are understandably a little trepidatious about the whole thing. New people are not something anyone has seen in generations. There's not even really a context for them. But I want to use. I'm losing my character sheet. Where did it go? There it is.
No.
I want to use the unfolding temple, and I sort of want to kind of go down on the knees and go on the shore and open up to sort of tell my people that this is. We need to welcome these people. We need to learn from these people. So,
that's
I'm
fantastic.
trying to tell them that we're. So that's a module, and I'm acting with love. So is that 8 and 4?
That is 8 and 4. You'll use a fuel if
I'll
you're.
use a fuel. Yeah, I'm good with that. All right, here we go. Oh, it did that thing where it didn't actually. No, it did roll. I got a 6.
Oh.
It didn't work out so well.
Oh,
and they match. It's 3 and 3. What happened? No, I'm never rolling again.
As I say, there's about a dozen. There's 12, 13. We'll say 13. That's a lovely number for a fail. So there are 13 of these new arrivals, and as you kneel and your people come to congregate in the temple that is well beloved, and they bring these newcomers, and you can tell they don't speak the same language. They don't understand each other, and you can see that from their boat. They brought something with them into the temple, and they're trying to talk with your tribe, and your tribe is reasonably afraid. And as they bring this thing out to them, one of your people in agitation not understanding them, not even understanding the concept that someone new would be there, grabs it from them and throws it down to the floor of the temple within you, and you feel it smash into the ground as the 13 of them, they wail as you feel it break within you. And all 13 of them just collapse to the ground crying.
I honestly don't know what to do.
Due to your influence, it's not like they're attacking them,
right?
But they've taken this, and these newcomers so distraught, and I'll give you a moment then to think there.
Okay.
As I think this fits perfectly for Nahalia. You sense across the island something beautiful, something that had not been seen by these people, by your people, or by you in millennia. Something beautiful was destroyed. A song. It is gone. And you could sense that it was there with the well deep, and you could sense the sadness of these newcomers. What do you do?
I think I'll go for something epic again. I think maybe I think it's gonna be some sort of like. Have you ever seen how some cultures have that that like funeral like wailing? I forget what it's called. It's like some African cultures have it, and there's some of the like indigenous peoples in Australia have it, so like and like they force themselves to. It's like a they start off forcing themselves to mourn essentially until they get actually caught up in it, and then everybody's really like crying and wailing. So I think I'm going to
some great lamentation.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bring on a kind of ritual mourning, or try to, on the like across the entire, just how I tried to spread peace before. This time I'm spreading justified sorrow and grief across the land.
Do you think is this maybe acting in hate? That something like this would happen? Something would be lost like this?
Yeah, I was thinking love, but maybe it's that complicated flip side of like hate's just the other side of the coin, right? And I guess it's she's flipped into this straight out of that other thing that she tried to do.
All right.
Yeah. So
do we feel like this is, are you using that module? Is there a different module you're using? Are you not using a module at all in this? You may not need to use a module in this if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think I won't. I think this is something that she just does without really like meaning to, almost. Like
more primal.
It's just it's a reaction.
Excellent. So 3d6, tell me if you roll doubles, and you'll need to get 7 or better out of 3d6, so you have a good shot.
Did they
you're adding them all up.
Cool. That's a 10.
Fantastic. And
fantastic. So I made everyone feel grief and mourn.
And so across the island, the tribes lift up their voices at this that was lost, this terrible sadness, even inside of you, well beloved. your own people kind of realize, what have we done? And they drop to their knees beside these people, crying. And Lou, I think Nahalia, with that role, with that, and with your purview, I think you hear in the lamentations of all the people of Eden, you hear that song that this item was able to make. And I'm thinking of it very much as kind of a electronica trance. But you hear that song that was lost, but it's not lost anymore. At least not to you.
Last minute file transfer.
And with this sadness that sweeps the island, well, beloved, I will ask you if it seems all right, but your people, they recognize in sadness the sameness of these newcomers and begin to embrace them, to mourn with them.
And I was thinking about it. I think I want to reach out to Kaiton, as Kaiton is the one who brings us this common language among the Oryx. I want to reach out to Kaiton to give a common language between us and the newcomers. Whether that's a ritual with like the bugs or something.
You hear this call.
Yeah. How do we treat time in this? Can we have a little bit of time, like shifting, like maybe it was daytime and now it's twilight?
We certainly can. I mean, you can.
I'd like to do like, there's a pause after this request, and then the sun's going down, and the insects that have bioluminescence come out, and they start to create this light show that establishes a medium of communication between these people. Maybe a combination of sound and light. It's like we use the light and signals, but the sound is like the orca. So those two kind of come together.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's beautiful. Do you come personally? Do you descend the mountain, or do you do this from afar?
I think it's above me even. Like it's almost like blending in with the stars. So you can't quite like distinguish them, but there's movement and there's like more oscillating or whatever.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so I'm going to we'll have this communication beginning to start. But I want to know, Karku, you were coming down. You said you were coming towards the Tala. What are you doing?
So yeah, it started up on that mountain peak, but this sort of cascading dust storm that comes sweeping down through the village as I try and whisper warnings to them, and down through the mountains and south along the island, until it gets right up to that dividing line between the Kaelan lands and the Talu lands, or Tala. And one of the personality traits that I rolled up was highly formal. So I think Karku, like 100% all the time, respects those entry rituals. So I'm interested to find out from Mahalia what the entry ritual for the Tala land is.
Oh, cool.
I think that it's I think it's one of those things that it actually takes like a ridiculously long amount of time to cross the border. Do you know what I mean? It's like 4 or 5 days of like being out of sight and like exchanging songs, and then like one person coming forward, and then maybe they swap a person and they go and teach each other.
Okay.
and then
So-
maybe they all come together and sing the song.
I like that. So yeah, this dust storm sort of sentient cloud comes sweeping down through the passes right up till the line of this land, and it sort of like shoots up like it's hit an invisible wall. And as the dust spreads away, there's Karku up on his hind legs, sort of standing up, and he's got his forelegs sort of like insectoid or praying mantis style. He's got one of my weapons was long sword, so I imagine his hooves and forelegs as being like very sharpened and blade like. And so as he's standing there, I think still some of that dirge and ululation of grief from your people is echoing out through the lands, and he starts rubbing those blade arms together, and it makes this sort of like a bowed saw sort of screeching wailing noise, but it resolves into a song, a response to this dirge, this mourning. And I think that's how it starts. And like I said, he is completely by the book, so he'll take the days to exchange songs of like grief and mourning and fear with these people back and forth in the most happy of greeting rituals. But he'll be calling across the winds and through the insects and through the dust the whole time, just Mahalia. Things are coming. The sky, it falls. We must talk.
Wonderful.
I think Mahali is doing the serene, just like waiting all the way back, because it would be rude to come down and talk to you on the border like these. I'm totally thinking of the whole Ent meeting, you know, taking like, we need to hurry. He's like, 2 weeks later, the meeting concludes.
That's cool.
I think that's neat.
And I think that this kind of is establishing something that we can use going forward, where we're going to play with a stretched bit of time. Maybe, you know, the idea of the Oryx is, you know, we can have these several days going on, as, you know, we have this period where there's mourning that goes on for a couple of days. And with you, well-beloved, now that this communication has begun to be open, now that we've had Ketan open this communication and it begins to work over the next several days, they begin to be able to talk to these newcomers. And so they begin to hear these tales, and you would be the first to really hear them because it's with your people, of their lands. They have been on the seas, carried by, I believe it was Toku, I believe is what I called him, their Timo. Has you know, this journey of weeks that they've taken far to the east is their lands, where there were other tribes, there were more peoples, which is a shock to yours. But that this cataclysm, this enormous explosion had occurred further into the land from them, and they had fled. They speak of this terrifying creature, another mechanical creature, and they call it Smarg. This bird that rose up on the winds and on the fire, and that all of the mechanicals of all of the other tribes could not protect their tribes. When Smarg, I better write it down or I'll forget it. When Smarg rose up, that it pulled their power, pulled their fuel to itself so that it could grow, and that this explosion was it pulling in as much power as it possibly could, and that it's coming here, it's coming for everyone.
Oh dear.
I like the idea of they sort of communicate using like scrawling in the sand and the bioluminescent bacteria. They sort of paint pictures, and it's sort of a pictogram, but it's very ephemeral. And they can only talk at night because it's the only time you can see it.
The insect dust, even, maybe. It's
Yeah,
my lesson.
And they've slowly begun to develop a language, and so these newcomers, the new 13, are sort of integrating into the tribe. But I think Well-Beloved sort of, once they learn this, wants to pull together the other Oryx and have a council, which is perhaps something that's not happened in a very long time. We sort of keep to ourselves, and so I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. I'm not. I think maybe Well-Beloved strides onto the land for the first time in a really long time, and only the other Oryx interpret that. The people don't know what to do with it, but Well-Beloved knows that they won't meet him in the waters, so that he has to go onto the land.
And you had already reached out to Katon. Do you think this is that the first Oryx as you step on that you send message to that we must meet?
Like that.
All right.
We're not going to be able to defeat Smarg alone. We have to work together, which is not something we necessarily do. I don't think we necessarily have a lot of animosity. Perhaps there's little between me and Karku. We'll find out. But yeah.
All right. And so, Katon, you get this message from Well-Beloved. How do you respond? What do you say? And I'm going to say again, we're having that stretch of time. So it's been 4 days, because that's convenient for our time scale, that he is conveying this to you. How do you respond?
Yeah, I think some of my priests go and meet with whoever your higher ranking. Do you have sort of a ranking in your tribe, or is it more?
Yeah, I think there's certainly like boat captains, and that's sort of the hierarchy that there is. It's all on a per boat basis. So the captains all get together and go on land, which they haven't done forever.
Yeah, so they'll meet you at the shore, and they'll have maybe they have some signals they use, like they send up a swarm of small insects that form like clouds that you can see in the day, and then at night they blink, sort of like helping you to come ashore.
As a mechanical question, because we've talked about how there's misunderstandings among the Oryx, do we want to roll on this?
That's well, what do we think? Do we think that this is that calling to you, Katon, is this enough adversarial feel that you think you would have an animosity or at least a difficulty here? Or is this, because of the exceptional circumstances, something that you would say, maybe we should meet, but then we have, of course, when the meeting's coming about, the potential for those sorts of misunderstandings. What do you think?
Is this you're asking me or
I'm asking you?
I think the latter. I think the initial part, it might, if this fails, I don't know if that's going to be as interesting as if it happens later on. I think that is more interesting possibility.
I think I agree. I think it'll be more fun for the misunderstanding with us together than the calling. So
I agree. I was just checking.
I think that's cool. So we've got members of the Antar who have come down, and we have the Well Deep who have come to land. We've established that we have had some interactions that are starting between the tribes. This has a much more significant feel to it as they come together and they exchange their formalized greetings. And so it is then that, Katon, you from your people begin to hear this story that the newcomers bring, and in your mind, the idea of this probably, I mean, it's sort of terrifying to hear. And so the weight of what they're saying comes to you as you're receiving this message from Well Beloved. We must meet. We must come together. I'm going to move over, though, as the long dance has reached its conclusion and its height. And so, Nahalia, the rituals have been observed. Do you go and meet with Karku?
I think Karku has to walk like through the Tala land to like come to where I am. I think that's part of the thing, and I'll just use it briefly as an opportunity to describe my people and their land a little bit more. So I think yeah, we get these images of Karku like striding kind of down like these dirt roads and stuff and like through little villages, and I think all of the Tala have come out to like watch I assume we've been in each other's like on each other's land before, but maybe, you know, it's something that probably happens quite rarely, or we've always been able to communicate more easily across longer distances, and that's not the case now. So I think probably this generation has maybe never even like seen like one of the other Oryxes up closely before.
Let me interrupt 1 second then, because we've talked a little bit about, you know, kind of the very mechanical nature of what you are, but Patrick, what does Karku look like?
So Karku is tall, obviously, all of us are, but his exterior, it's grays and blacks that sort of twist in over each other. It's more patterning in like what is reflective and what is matte than there is in like color patterning on him. Like I said, his forelegs, they end in these long, sharp sort of blades that, you know, when he's up in the mountain areas, that helps him dig in and cut through and get holds up on stuff. And he's got his antlers, his horns are festooned with, and so is some of his like draped across his back. There's like embroidery and lace work and like fetishes and talismans that the people have made and hung on him.
Do they mark you with the mud?
No, his is the dust. It always stays sort of dry and particulate around him.
Okay. So Nahalia?
Yeah, that's super perfect, because I was just about to introduce that like the Tala are all colorblind as well, so I'm bringing more science in. There's been some small, like somebody was colorblind within the Tala originally, so now like nearly all of them are colorblind. So that, though, I think they find Karku particularly beautiful because of the way you described that he's made up of, like, it's more about contrast and pattern than about color. So I think they're just like, and they're all about their creative, like, people. So they're just like, you know, they're pretty overwhelmed. And I think it's been a hard, like, week of grieving and stuff. So this is like something really beautiful that's happening. So they're probably singing and like making a big fuss as he passes through. Yeah, then I think he comes up onto the foothills of this little peninsula, and Mahalia is waiting there. And I think the Tala and Mahalia are much smaller than the other Oryxes. I guess maybe it's generations of not caring so much about eating and more about doing other things, but she's just made that way.
Kind of delicate.
Yeah. And I think she's actually like strangely very colorful, but it's almost garish. Like, I guess if you couldn't see the colors, it's because no thought has gone into the colors that are displayed on her. They're there just for the purposes of the texture and the pattern and stuff like that. And I think she's just completely covered in fabric and paintings, and there's all sorts of, she's like there's artworks just stuck to her, and probably chimes and all like musical kind of sounds and stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. And so as you approach Karku, and the two of you see each other probably for the first time in many years, what do you say? You are muted, my love.
Not muted, you're muted. Mahalia, it has been too long. But this grief, now that it is past, this ritual, now that it is past, time is urgent. A storm comes, and the fallout drifts towards us.
What are we going to do? Have you listened to the new people, the stories they tell of the bird flying across the ocean?
I have not. I know only of the grief. I had heard of the whale, the orca, but I had not heard of this bird. I came because you have the old stories, the old knowledge. Do you know of the nuclear energy? Do you know of the fallout dust from the sky?
I think there's an interesting thing happening while you're speaking, that her module of like coming off of sounds and stuff is in action. So even though Kaku is saying really scary things, the sounds that are bouncing off these things are kind of emanating this feeling of like calm into the area. And I think some of the people are sitting around her feet kind of listening. And I think she's like, I do know, well, I like the rhythms of the words that you speak, and they do sound familiar to me. It might take me a while to go through my vast stores of knowledge and find the information that you seek, but perhaps I might call on you in a few days. It's been a long time since I saw the land of your people.
Yes, much of the past, much of the wonder has dissipated over the eons, is buried under the dust of time. But see what you can rouse up, and then come to the mountains.
And
bring the others if you see them. We shall have a meeting, I think.
I would like for you both to roll me a will, and we will see how well this conversation went between you.
Can I say that I'm using my module to aid, seeing as I described
Absolutely.
It's creating a feeling of well-being between us that might not be there otherwise?
Absolutely. And again, we have modules we could pull in because we have some open spaces.
Since I went through the full ritual process and respected all of Mahalia's ways, can I get advantage on this roll?
You certainly may. That's a very good use of that.
So what I'm rolling D8
you'll roll a D8 and a D6. You need to get 10. Tell me if you roll an 8. You don't have to worry about doubles on these.
Oh, bad start.
Yeah, I rolled a 1, and a 3, so that's a 4 plus 2 is 6.
I got a 1 and a 6.
And do you have any bonus in will?
Oh, I do. I think I do. But maybe I have got. Where did I write this down? I think I've got a +2. So 7, 9.
So close.
All right. Then in this case, since it's both a fail, the lose yours is ever so close. I want to first hear from you, Patrick. What does Karku believe was? What does Karku believe he conveyed that he did not? What of that? And we'll take then. We'll kind of change out what we've heard here. What is it that you tried to say? What piece of information did you try to give that was wrong, that was mangled?
I think maybe it was in the invitation that maybe that came across more dismissive than I was meaning, and it was sort of like if you find something, you don't have my answer, fine. If you have something in your dusty cupboards, then come see me at some point or whatever, in a sort of offhanded way. I think maybe that's like what got across there.
Okay. So it seemed a bit more like, come to me when you have something.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And since you were ever so close, Nahalia, what piece of information are you looking for that is not what he was asking for?
What words was he saying? Fallout and nuclear. So I believe that this is something that I believe he asked me to look for, or that I've just taken on a flight of fancy and I'm looking for this.
Correct. You did not. What he said wasn't the right thing, and now you've got something else in your mind.
I got distracted by the ideas of treasure being, like, maybe cultural treasures being buried beneath my own land, like things that I might find interesting. Yeah, so I'll probably set my people to searching for that.
Like it's been forever since you thought to go through the deepest archives, and you're like, oh, what else could I find in there?
Yeah, perhaps it's maybe it is more of a metaphorical buried treasures within my own, like, memory. I like that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, and so as we've had this meeting and we have you, Karku, moving off, I'm going to pop back down to our beach with Well-Beloved and the priests of the Entar, and this idea that we have to meet. And so, Ketan, as you've heard this, we need to meet. What is your reaction? What do you do?
I'm trying to. Is the Well-Deep tribe favoring this idea of going up to? We're trying to meet the others, right? To converge.
I think sort of Well-Deep originated the idea that we need to get together, because I was the first to hear. What was the name of the bird again?
Smarg.
Smarg. Yeah, because I was the first to hear Smarg. I thought we need to band together, because wherever Timo is from, we need to not let the same thing happen to us.
Yes. And what about the people who follow Timo? Where are they now?
They're on the beach with the Well-Deep.
Yeah,
they're all together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And with your priests.
Yeah, so I think what happens is my priests come clad in the colors of the Orca. to show that they are friends, right? So it's like black, like whatever they're wearing, like feathers or like pieces of chitin, and then the white spots for where the orca's pattern is. And then I suggest that the sea is the element where this the bird is the element of the air, right? And the orca is the element of the sea. We have power on the earth. My caves could be used as sanctuary against this enemy. But first, we should speak of it with the others and see what they have to say. What do you think?
And I'm going to go with, I think Well-Beloved speaks that Karku will try to convince us that the old ways are the ways of fixing this. And I need you to know that our ways are the ways of fixing this. And we must stay together as we are now. We must not give in to the temptation of using the old ways.
So just so I have it straight, the old ways were the machine ways,
the machine ways, what made us.
Yeah.
But yes, the dangers of the nuclear explosions and stuff like that. Yes,
the old ways share a similar path of this. What's the bird's name?
Smarg.
Smarg. Yeah, they follow a similar path of Smarg. We don't want that to happen to our people. We fought so hard to get what we have. So you have me as your ally in this.
Well, let's see. Why don't we have you both roll a will?
Okay.
My people aren't good at that either. Okay.
Now, is this the Maze Rats roll? Or
this is a Maze Rats rule. So we're rolling 2d6. You can, if you have a module you think will work, put that in there and switch out an 8, a D for an 8. And you're looking for 10, so it ain't easy.
Right. And this is the one where you can roll an extra die for advantage if you have
if you can, yep.
Do you think that, I don't want this to be a stretch, I'll leave it to everyone to chime in. Do you think that the idea that I came dressed in the orca costume may have been enough to get that?
Yeah, I think that it's showing that already you're reaching out for this coming together, this sort of joining and discussing this. I think that works for an advantage. So that'd be 3d6, take the best 2. Okay. And of course, adding your will. Greg, do you feel that there's anything you could use in there, or are you rolling straight?
I think I'm rolling straight. I don't think I have a module I can use. And I think Well-Beloved is a very isolated Oryx, so this is strange to be talking to another Oryx as it is. So we'll see how that goes.
I got a 12 total.
Nice.
And I got a 10.
Wow, that was actually pretty.
Then the two of you perfectly communicate this. The understanding is perfect, and for kind of a moment, it is like the old times have returned.
Yes,
you are once more in that harmony, seeing this danger to your peoples. And so with this knowledge, what was the suggestion? Was it, we're going to have to meet, was there a come to me from Caton, or was, were you saying, Well-Beloved, that, bring everybody here to the beach? Are you going to pack up your people and sail them around?
I don't think all my people are going to. I think I'm going to have to go onto the island. I think I'm vastly outnumbered, and I don't think it's right that I would call them all to the ocean.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go onto the land as a hope that gesture will mean something to the others. And I sort of like the image of the bugs from Karku sort of drinking the dew on Wellborn. That's kind of like that's back to the old days, how things were, and so that's like, we're reconnecting. But yeah, the real drive was I was trying to make sure that when we come to this council, I have an ally and I have somebody who will back me up.
Beautiful. And so we see you traveling across the island, heading up towards the great volcano, the caldera that's there. What do you look like? What does it look like seeing you travel? Describe yourself.
So I put it in the character sheet. I picture that Well-Beloved, because Well-Beloved lives in the ocean, Well-Beloved can't be metal. So he's sort of ceramic and pneumatic. How he moves, there's a lot of like pistons and tubing, like clear tubing all over him that's different colors of water move through it as he sort of ambles his way onto land. And then the lower half of his legs, where normally it would be clean because he spends so much time in the water, there's sort of barnacles and other lichen and stuff have adhered to the legs, and they're sort of drying up as he walks onto the land.
Oh, I love it. And so as you travel across towards the caldera, Kaiten, Kaiten, you're there watching as he arrives. And so as he comes within view and sees you, I guess, up on the slopes at the top, what does he see? What do you look like?
Oh, is this me?
Yes, you. Yes.
Oh, you see what? Yeah. So you see what appears to be something resembling a cross between a firefly and a rhinoceros beetle with really long legs, segmented, shiny, mostly black, but with like splotches of color here and there. Each of the splotches is like a pattern that resembles one of the insects. So it's like a mosaic of all the different insect patterns over this one super insect that's really tall.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so as you, Well-Beloved, move up the mountain, looking up, seeing each other for the first time in person in so very long, what are the words you say to him? And then we're going to cut off. I've got to have us end on that first greeting in so long.
And so the ocean meets the mountain. And so the bird flies in the east. And so we come together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Lou, that's funny too. You look old.
I like that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I want Lou out of Nahalia. As you're going back through your memories, going back through these vast stores of the ancient knowledge, I'm going to give you an option here. Do you feel like this is using your auric power, drawing from that, or do you feel like that this is more of you and the tribe in song coming together to push this knowledge back up? The difference being, of course, if you go with your Oryx power, you'll spend that fuel, you'll have the much better shot.
Mm-hmm.
Or with the other, I would give you advantage because you're using the tribe, but it's a pretty hard roll regardless.
Yeah, I'm kind of how I was picturing it before you offered me this opportunity, was that it's the tribe doing a ritual thing, but they're actually, like, it's a way of operating the module. Like, I was kind of wanted to steal Greg's idea of like some sort of space within. I really like that idea. So I think perhaps there's a priest that's like, they're essentially operating like consoles and stuff. There's screens and keyboards, but it's knowledge that's been passed along, maybe like orally. So they're like, yeah. So I think it is the people, but yeah.
You want to use a module with it?
Yeah, I'll risk this module.
There's like an expansive server farm that lives inside of you.
Yeah, and maybe even she's probably connected remotely to like data stores like beneath the earth. Like there's far too much knowledge to actually like
that's
fit inside
wonderful.
of her.
All right. So we have that. That's a second module for you, the library there. So you can roll 1d6, 1d8. You're adding your will. Actually, I said you'd have advantage there, so you can roll 2d6 and a d8.
Gamed.
How did you do?
Let's see. Jesus. No, wait, I got that +2. 9, and then plus my will is 11.
Oh. And so, delving into this, it refreshes the memory of nuclear power.
Yeah, but I think it has to be creative things around the idea of nuclear power, because she doesn't have scientific memories. And
cafe.
Which is why I would like for you to tell us, what do you pull up about A, what this power can be, and B, how it was abused to cause the fall?
Yeah, I think we actually see we see the priests in there working, and we see all this we probably get a shot of all those like underground like server things and lights coming on, and I think what we get is kind of like we kind of see this old footage of big protests about probably like nuclear weapon and armament, de-armament kind of protests and stuff. And I think there's probably Dylan-esque protests, singers singing about them. But then there's probably also some writing, kind of Philip K. Dick-esque, light parallel universe, speculative fiction kind of stuff. So I think once she's interacted with all of these ideas and stuff, she still gets, if not a very technical understanding of nuclear power and how dangerous it might be, and the weapon, and how dangerous those sorts of weapons might be. She still gets quite a wide understanding of it, if not a deep understanding.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And so with this knowledge coming to you, you can feel in the center of the island, as the two Oryx have met, something that, happens very seldom. You have just had this meeting with one yourself. Things are changing. Something tremendous and new is going on, and they're there. And I think we're probably even getting the call that's coming of, we must meet. And off at your own crater, Karaku, you can feel that calling as well. What do you do, Karaku?
So I think I've come back to the village, and I'm in a Templar sort of area, and the oracles, the priestesses are there. They're reweaving the sort of embroidery through my horns. They're replacing the talismans that were hung on me that got damaged or dirty from this travel across the island. And yeah, I think I'm just sort of there and shake my head, and I'm directing them around to begin preparing for Mahalia's appearance, because we have to be as open and opulent about our reception of her as she was to me.
All right, and so we see you with your people, and I think we're reaching our time. So I think we're going to be stopping as we have. I think Nalia, is it fair to say you're going to go to your meeting with Karku? Is that fair to say, Lou? Yes. And so we see you setting off. We see the other two at the top of the mountain, beginning there. And I again love that concept of time being different, the Itmoot sort of feel of you're beginning to convey these bits of information as we see the Oryx of Eden coming together. Across in the east, we can see a bank of black dust. It starts to blot out the sky. Inside of it, you can see greenish lightning striking. It's far away, but it's roiling closer. And from its center, you hear this great and terrible cry, as though some monstrous bird is on the wing. And that's where we will end Mechanical Oryx for tonight. We're right here at the 11. I will ask, do folks have maybe 10 minutes so we can do, I don't think I'm going to do a Roses and Thorns, but I wouldn't mind doing like a Stars and Wishes, so that we can, highlight a little bit of the things we thought were cool, and we can kind of form up what we want for next time. Because I think since we only got one more, we'll want to be fairly focused. So I'd like to know what you guys would like to see now that we've kind of got an idea of what we're doing. So we'll start with Stars, because actually Lou is the one who came up with the Stars and Wishes, introduced it to us, and I think it's a lovely mechanic. I like Roses and Thorns too for things it does, but in the middle of a session, I like Wishes and Stars because it kind of reaches out for things we want to see in the next one. We may do an actual Roses and Thorns for the last one, because I do like to hear that feedback that has some critique to it.
Yeah, if you're tough enough to withstand the critical stuff, then I think it's useful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna start with Stars in this one, because unlike Roses and Thorns, where you want to start with Thorns because then you want to end on a high note, I think Wishes and Stars kind of has a high note all of its own in both sets. So I'll start with Stars by saying thank you all for really jumping into what is definitely experimental here. Y'all all really leaned into it. I appreciate that a lot. I love the amount of work you put into the world build here. World building is a lot of fun, and you guys came up with brilliant things. I believe in this island of Eden. I see it. It is really nicely formed, and y'all did such a cool little details all around in it. It is so interesting. So I appreciate that, and like I say, I really appreciate us jumping into what is a hodgepodge system. Oryx itself is a minimal system and has its issues. Mage Rats is not a perfect system in itself. But you guys, I feel like we're making a system out of it that's working, and I appreciate that from each of y'all. So, Ari, why don't you start us off with some Stars?
Yeah, I just want to second that the world building was really well done. Like, you guys, everyone was like adding the piece, and it was just spiraling and going around really well. That worked beautifully for me. Yeah, that said, the world building is like one of my favorite things in any role-playing game. So that I had a lot of fun with that.
Cool. Greg, Stars you'd like to give out?
I too really enjoyed the world building. I'm trying to think of something during play that I really enjoyed too. I really liked that just everyone builds on the visuals that everyone else is providing. That's awesome. My first game with the Gauntlet, I know you guys do that a lot. It's my first time experiencing it live. I've seen it on videos. It's really cool. I particularly liked the visuals that we did when we're all coming together. I like that we sort of saved what we physically look like until the very end. it sort of makes it a very cool moment, and it brought some weight to that moment at the end. So that was really cool.
Awesome. Lou, stars, sir?
I really liked how, so I guess a star, I already said in the chat that you're very good at facilitating world building. Like I, just after the last time I played with you, I think was what's
Space
it called? Yeah, Space Worm, which has got big world building stuff at the start. Like, so I've seen you do that before. I really liked how you, like, we all created it together, and then your first move was to bring outsiders into it, and that was really cool in terms of like we're all different, but then we suddenly had this solidarity, and it made our world we'd created like feel a lot more real, and like trying to protect that world that we just created. That was super cool. And another star, I love this story that we're telling like so far. It's genuinely one of the stories I've been like most excited about in my like all the games I've ever played, maybe. I'm totally gonna make sure you share this video, because I reckon I might play with the ideas. I might even try write a little story or short story or something that could be fun and do some art for it.
Cool.
That would be so cool.
And also I think the game idea has legs too, like for playing around with. So yeah, anyway, I won't use up too much time, but yeah, I'm excited about it.
Thank you, Lou. And
can I add real quick?
Certainly.
Your establishing questions and the questions you asked us were really good. Like you pinpointed the just the right questions to ask us, and there was no fat there at all. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you. Patrick, stars.
I love the world build too, and I think a major star for me is how much everyone like honed in and laser focused on a certain mood of like decay and loss and beauty, and there's still good things out there, but it's that sand slipping through the hourglass sort of feel that's implied in the mechanical Oryx write-up. But I think even before we'd made it once around in the beginning world build, everyone was just honing in on that particular feel, and it really came through beautifully. As far as particular moments, Lou, I really enjoyed your choice when I got up to the border and I was like, okay, what's the ritual to get in? I really enjoyed the sort of bold choice of like, it's 5 days of sitting and telling stories and singing songs back and forth. That was really cool, and I liked the whole visual of it, but then it started to influence how we saw our gameplay and how we saw like how the Oryxes interact with the world versus how the people interact with the world. And so that really ended up shaping something cool.
I think another big thing that influenced how we played was that establishing the difficulty in communication at the start too. It would be a very different game if we hadn't have established that, I think. Yeah. Anyway, jumping on your stars.
And also, Greg, I liked how much in this world of like, we're really weird and these people are really weird and this world and this island are really weird. You took your idea and you managed to move it even further off to the side of like, there was always something very unique and different from everything else that was going on about Wellborn and about the sort of wateriness that you were bringing to things. And so it was really great to have, yeah, we all think we're being very different, but then you come forward with this character that is truly unique amongst us and ends up being a beautiful bridge between the different sort of forces and worlds that we're interacting with here. I thought that was very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say, Greg, for this to be your first game, you were spectacular. I'll tell you, right there at the end with the dew and the the insects drinking from it. And then you twisted that knife in even better and that is like it once was. It just hit. Oh, it hits so well. So well. Let's do some wishes. And I think I'll come back up. Patrick, would you like to maybe give a wish for what you'd like to see next time around? Maybe a little focus for our last session.
I mean, I definitely think we're going to dig into this bird. I don't think that's a fear I need to worry about. But I am interested in pulling up more of the weird history of this world and this situation. We've got this implication of the other mechanical O animals out there. And so what is the purpose to the different stratification of them? What was the purpose of these things in general? Like, were we a response to a cataclysm? Were we part of the cause of it? I'm just really, I think all those questions are really fascinating.
Cool. I'd like to delve into that too. I'll try and put that as a focus. Lou, wishes for our next session.
I think it feels like it's heading in a really good direction. I'm happy to see the story of us either managing to communicate well despite our differences and miscommunication, like if it's that sort of story, or I'm happy to see if we all fall apart with not being able to communicate and, you know, we get completely destroyed and everything falls apart. I'm just really interested at where it's sitting and where it could go. Like, I don't feel like I have anything to push in any direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so keep it on that little knife edge of.
Yeah, my wish is let's just keep, like, I think feels like it's set up really well for a second session to me.
Cool. Greg, wishes for a focus on our last session.
I would like to see a little more with the tribes and how they interact. I think there hasn't really been much of a reason to do that quite yet. So it's not a thorn. I think that would be an interesting part. Surely we get together, but whether or not, when we agree, whether the people agree, that would be interesting to see. Like, if the Oryxes all agree, but the people don't, what does that look like? Or the vice versa kind of thing.
I think that's a very cool idea. I will definitely, because I'll review this again before we play. I will definitely try and keep that in my mind, that we might want to explore that. We've talked about they don't completely believe in the mission of the Oryx anymore. Maybe they're not going to be on board when this all comes down. That could be a really neat, and that plays with that knife edge tension. I like that. Thank you, Greg. Ari, wishes for our last session.
Yeah, you set this thing up beautifully. The only thing I'm personally like really curious about to see is this dichotomy between the old ways and the new ways. I'd like to see a little bit of some collisions between the group and maybe some of the other elements, the enemies, the bird, and see how that all fits into that.
It does feel a little bit like maybe like Haku and Mahali are potentially on the old ways side, and like Well Beloved and Chitin are on the other side. But you know, they seem like there could be points of agreement and disagreement in all of those relationships, I think.
It's also interesting that the new ways are we're the Luddites, not the old.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Old ways, new ways might not be the best name there, but everything else.
Excellent. I hear that, Ari, and I think that could be very cool too. I want to explore that as well. And so, wishes for me. I do want to have some opportunity for us to, engage a little bit of this the system with the magic. I love the magic spells, so I do want us to have a chance to use those. I do want to engage what it's like with these tribes. We talked about them being so separate. I do agree that I'd like to see some of the, the difficulties of them working together. I think that'll be really a neat thing. I don't want to make it I don't want the last session to be a big fight on the top of a volcano for the whole 3 hours. That doesn't seem like what we're building at all. But I do want us to have that sort of clash, even if it is not like combat. I want to see the clash of what Smog is. That's my dog, not my stomach, if you're hearing growling. But I want to see that clash of what Smog is bringing compared to what our Oryx are. And I am making a point of, I think the Oryx are, since they're herd beasts and very much protectors, I'm making a distinction from, like this bird, which is a predator, and these people who come from the Orca, which is a predator. And I do want to explore some of the base nature of people who follow protectors and herd beasts as compared to these others. That's kind of what I'm wishing for there. And as always, I'm hoping, it's always one of my big wishes, I want to leave space open so you all feel welcome to create. If it feels like you are driving the story and you are creating it, I feel like I'm succeeding. So that's always a wish for me, is to make sure you feel safe in putting stuff in. It is your story. So once again, thank you all for playing. I had a good time with this, and I was a little worried if it was going to work.
I had a great time. As a last-minute star to throw in there, I think the system mashup works really well. I like that sort of high-level, low-level decision-making, resource spending process through there. I think it works nicely.
I think it did too. Ari, you were saying something?
No, I was agreeing. I found it not to be jarring at all. Like, looking at it from the Oryx perspective, and then looking at it from the followers, that was yeah.
I was definitely looking at it, seeing like little things that you could change and play with that would be fun. Like I reckon you totally need to have a bigger chance for your module to break, because it's like a pretty low chance, really. Maybe on a 1 or an 8, and those are two different ways that it either goes overboard and does the thing too big and breaks, or it just fizzles or whatever like that. But yeah, it's still totally, it just made me excited about other things that it could do. There was nothing that it couldn't do that we needed to do.
Right. Yeah, and I see where you're coming from there. I imagine that because I've split off these dice, it means that we're rolling that module a little less. Though I did try and bring it into when we're rolling on the Maze Rats thing. It's a 1 in 8. You might be right. I worry a little if it's 25% of the time we're going to bust our modules all the time.
I just want my thing to break because it's such an important part of the character. I want to see what
It is always fun to see the awful happen.
Yeah. Or maybe even the choice, like if you fail your roll, to like overload your module. Like, I really want to do this.
Now
like, I'm going to break it on purpose.
Like a spendable resource. That's a neat idea.
Like the something is lost forever thing as a choice.
I really like that. We may
let me do it at the next time.
Yeah. Well, I'll think on that, and I like that. So we very well may try and implement that next time. I like that. Giving up something for that success you really need. I like that. All right, well, guys, again, I really appreciate it. I'm glad that this ended up working out. I felt like the feel of this game was just lovely, and it's always a pleasure playing with you, Ari. You, one of my favorite folks in the world. Lou, I adore every chance we get to play. Patrick, every time we play is fantastic, and I love you dearly. And Greg, thank you so much for joining Gauntlet. You frickin' rock. You are so going to fit in with us. You are a first-rate player, and I'm glad to have you aboard with us.
This is really fun. This was a really great game to start on.
Yeah,
too.
this was really fun.
I was happy to be in the game, your first Gauntlet game, Greg, and looking forward to more. And happy to meet you, Patrick. I heard all about you from Tyler.
I've heard a lot about you too. Just sort of cross paths.
Well, I'm going to end our broadcast here. For those of you who happen to watch, those half dozen or at most that watched, thank you. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks.